So, welcome to a Kaleidoscope virtual session for Friday. This is AC Online's Best Kept Secrets using technology to support students remotely. And it's presented by the AC Online Student Success Team. I'm Gabrielle Berube, your ambassador. I have a couple notes and then I'll pass it on to the presenters. So please note the session will be recorded for the AC community. If you do not wish to be recorded, please turn your video feature off. The recording will be available after the conference. Please keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking. We encourage you to use the chat function for messages of support for the facilitators, and overall Kaleidoscope evaluations will be sent to everybody afterwards for our continued improvement for next time. So I turn it over to the presenters.
All right, thanks everyone. I was just getting myself oriented here with the screen share. So hello everyone, thank you for being here. And thank you, Gabrielle, for introducing us. And so as we all know, this year has brought on a lot of changes as our college community has shifted online. So regardless of our role, most of us have had to adapt to working from home and supporting our students remotely. While we have handled this remarkably well, all things considered, it has also been challenging. That being said, AC Online, our fully online campus, has had an easier time with this transition than many departments. Our learners have always been online, and supporting them at a distance is not new to us. Today, we'd like to share a bit about our approach in hopes that you'll find it helpful for supporting your students through the pandemic and beyond. So during today's session, we'll start by walking you through our overall approach at AC Online, including some of our major success campaigns. Next, we'll look at some of the strategies and tools that our course facilitators use on Brightspace. We'll then talk about how to effectively engage with students through both synchronous and asynchronous communication tools. We'll discuss why it's important to adopt a long-term approach to supporting students remotely. And finally, we'll wrap up with an open discussion and Q&A where we can chat about some of the challenges and strategies you've been experiencing and having in the past 8 months. So I know Gabrielle already gave you a quick introduction, just we're the AC Online Student Success Team, but we wanted to personally introduce ourselves before getting started. So we're here representing AC Online Student Success Team. We are part of a larger team, but we're just a few members here to talk to you today. So my name is Liz Hagemeyer. I'm one of the 2 student success specialists for AC Online. I've been in that role for nearly 2 years, but I've also been an on-campus partial load professor here at the college for over 5 years. So I've also needed to shift my courses to remote delivery this year. I'll let the rest of our presenters introduce themselves, starting with Josh Bainans.
Good morning, everyone. So my name is Joshua Bainans, and I'm the other student success specialist in AC Online. I've been with AC Online for just over 2 years now, and I am also a part-time professor here for our on-campus students. And I'll let Sasha introduce herself.
Good morning, Algonquin College. My name is Sasha Leduc. I am a full-time online student pathway advisor. I've been in the role for just over a year. I also work part-time as a part-time faculty with the School of Health and Community Studies on campus. So I also had to shift my courses online as well. And I will let Brianna introduce herself.
Thanks, Sasha. So I'm Brianna Beischer. I'm the online facilitator community specialist. So I work with the AC Online facilitators. And this role is new to me and new it's since November. But previous to that, I was an AC Online facilitator. So have experience using the Brightspace tools to support our online students. And so hopefully this information will be helpful for you as well.
Okay, so I thought that we would, to help get us started, and if you can move to the next slide, Liz. I thought it would be a great idea to hear from all of you folks and in the chat just to tell us a bit more about what you do at the college and what department you're coming from. And while you all do that, I'm going to get started with my part of the presentation, which will be reviewing our overall approach in AC Online. So first of all, I would like to thank everyone for being here today. And I also want to thank the organizers for giving AC Online and our student success team the opportunity to share our insights and our strategies. So college institutions are experiencing a shift in the type of learners seeking academic credentials, and their expectations are ultimately changing. The post-secondary landscape is more competitive and complex than ever. So in order to grow their markets, colleges need to think differently about the ways that they support our learners. So in the last 18 months, AC Online has established a student success team that is devoted to providing personalized supports to help guide learners from application to registration to graduation. And over the past several months since COVID-19 began, I and my fellow colleagues in AC Online have been hearing about the challenges across the college. In AC Online, we understand how difficult it is to engage learners in a remote and online environment. We understand that it is more challenging to identify and take the pulse of our learners. We understand that communication and outreach becomes the backbone of establishing success strategies. Finally, we understand the vital importance of utilizing digital tools to help identify, track, and follow up with our at-risk learners. My hope is that throughout this presentation, we will be able to share some of the ways in which AC Online approaches and tackles these challenges. Next slide, please. To begin, I would like to spend a few moments reviewing some of the campaigns and strategies that AC Online has developed over the last several years. So in 2018, our department underwent an organizational restructuring, which led to the formation of the Student Success Team portfolio. This team consists of an academic manager of student success, 2 student success specialists, 5 online student pathway advisors, and an online facilitator community specialist. As a team, we have been working diligently to establish best practices that will not only allow us to foster engagement with our learners, but also engagement with the college stakeholders and our facilitator group. There is no question that online learning helps to democratize access to higher learning. This does, however, mean that our learner demographic presents some unique challenges from a student success and retention perspective. Because of the flexibility of online learning, many of our learners often juggle with other commitments. Online learning also opens opportunities for folks who may not have had the opportunity to attend a traditional on-campus setting for a variety of reasons. For today's presentation, I'm going to highlight 3 specific campaigns that AC Online uses to help identify, provide support for, and engage our learners. Next slide, please. So the first campaign is something that we refer to as our Cyber Truant campaign. So in weeks 2 and 3 of the semester, we leverage the data that is collected through Power BI and the Brightspace Data Hub to identify students who, for whatever reason, have not yet logged into their courses. By then, there is still an opportunity to support students in getting started and catching up in their courses. This is where we really begin to unpack many of the reasons why students struggle to get started in their programs. One of the first indicators that a student might be struggling is whether or not they have actually logged in and started working in their courses on Brightspace. In an online and remote learning environment, as I'm sure you all know, a student's activity within the learning management system is an incredibly important indicator. This is not only helpful when we're trying to identify a learner's engagement, but it is also an important way to identify at-risk learners as early in the semester as possible. We recognize that Brightspace in many ways is the classroom, and their lack of engagement is an opportunity to create dialogue with the student and to try to actively collaborate with the available supports and to track and follow up with their progress. So over the last 3 terms, our early mitigation strategies allowed our success team to actively engage and save 132 unique full-time and part-time students. And this has ultimately impacted 355 individual courses. So in other words, over the last 3 terms, this is about 29% of our students who were identified as a part of this campaign that we were able to save. Next slide, please. So the second campaign that I would like to discuss is the AC Online SOS Student Outreach and Support campaign. This campaign aims to identify students who at the midway point of their term are at risk and might require assistance outside of the purview of their course facilitators. So this really tries to mimic the midterm E&P process that takes place in most on-campus faculties. So at this point, students might be at risk if they have not been active in their course, they've not been sitting assignments consistently, they're performing poorly on graded assignments, and maybe their personal circumstances are preventing them from meeting the course expectations. So in this campaign, students are identified by their course facilitators during weeks 6 and 7. Facilitators use an online form or submit a pre-formatted Excel template to the student success team. So in the forms, we ask for the relevant student information, the reason for a referral, and any context that is relevant to help the student get connected to the resources that they need. Once the students are identified, the student success team sends separate and personalized outreach to each student. All form submissions and Excel sheets are then populated into a master tracking sheet in our OneDrive, which allows our team to identify trends, track progress, and to follow up with students who are requesting additional support. This also allows our team to securely compile data and to track progress. This campaign intends to transcend the time and space needed to actually facilitate an E&P process. So we actively encourage the facilitator group to utilize the online form for students who at any of the point in the term need support. So by using this online form, we are able to collect relevant information in a centralized database, which better allows our team to provide personalized supports and to track our outreach. The best part is that this form allows us to receive referrals from facilitators even outside of the midterm period because we know that not all students are identified just during that midterm E&P process. So far this term, 350 unique students have been referred to us using the SOS campaign, which means that 350 students have received personalized outreach and have been offered support. Next slide. So far I've identified two specific campaigns. The first, our Cyber Truant campaign, which is an early alerting system, whereas the second, our SOS campaign, is aimed at identifying students in the midterm phase of their courses. The third and final campaign highlights an ongoing layer of support for our learners. Unique to our approach in AC Online is our focus and emphasis on tracking, following up, and touching base with our students. Also unique is our emphasis on personalization. So in order to personalize the online learner experience, AC Online has adopted a case management approach that promotes online learner success and satisfaction. This approach enables our learners to benefit from a collaborative and multidisciplinary approach to helping our students and ultimately to succeed in their courses. Their progress is closely monitored and each member of our student success team is a part in aiding their success. For example, when a student is funneled through our case management approach, their student success specialist can provide learning resources or provide referrals to other college or community supports. Their pathway advisor can provide insights related to their program and can also personalize a course load which best fits their personal circumstances. Finally, our team is able to draw on expertise and guidance and resources from other college stakeholders, such as the Center for Accessible Learning, the Registrar's Office, and financial aid. This culminates into a multifaceted and collaborative wraparound approach to support our students and to help maximize their online experience. Our learner-focused approach and devotion to student success has been amplified by the development of this approach. So in doing so, AC Online has been strategic in supporting learners' individual needs and preferences so that we can deliver a truly personalized experience that supports their success. This approach not only does that in a safe and it does that by allowing us to provide support and to help them come up with realistic goals when students are faced with complex personal, social, financial, environmental, and academic situations. Ultimately, case management enables AC Online staff to coordinate efforts when making decisions and on behalf of the students for their success, satisfaction, and program and course completion. So obviously this is a very general introduction to our campaign. So I encourage you to reach out if you have any questions or you are interested in learning more about these unique campaigns. So it is now my pleasure to hand things over to my colleague, Sasha.
I would like to ask you as the audience, have you heard about the online student pathway advisor positions? Can you please use the thumbs up for yes in the reactions? Great, thank you. So some of you have heard of our positions. Next slide, please, Liz. I'm delighted to share about the wonderful work we do to support our online learners. I primarily support programs that fall under the community studies portfolio. PAs, which are pathway advisors, are the main point of contact for full-time online students, and our role focuses on personalized and continued support on the learner from registration all the way to graduation. An important part of the role is adjusting and customizing course loads as per students' academic or personal needs, as well as helping students navigate the college policies and procedures. Next slide, please. The PAs support online learners through focused digital outreach and communication supports, primarily using email, video, and teleconferencing. We work closely with AC Online Student Success Specialists by referring students to the SSS for additional support. If a student has fallen behind in their studies, I would connect them virtually with our SSS to figure out how they can catch up on their coursework or create a schedule to organize their courses. Next slide, please. The PAs participate in multiple student outreach campaigns to engage our learners throughout the term. At the start of the term during week 3, we send welcome emails to our level 1 students. This is a great opportunity to welcome our new students at the start of the term and introduce ourselves, as well as the supports they can access to help them with their studies. Depending on the program, it is a great opportunity to notify them about important deadlines. With early childhood education, I take the opportunity to remind the students about the upcoming deadlines to meet placement requirements. We also send check-in emails to our returning students to touch base and provide a refresher of the support available through their PA and the college. This is a great way to connect with returning students and remind them that we are here to help if they have any questions. As part of our SOS campaign that Josh spoke about previously, the PA reaches out to students who are on custom progressions to follow up on their plans for the upcoming term. Some students may decide that they may want to take the maximum course load, and others may want to continue to have a reduced course load moving forward. We have found that this is a positive and proactive outreach that tends to reduce registration errors that may emerge later on. The PA also identifies students who may need extra support because they have been placed on academic probation. We do this once a term, usually near the end, when we are confirming their registration for the upcoming term. We have a template email where we add the courses that they were not successful, an explanation about academic probation, and propose a new course load for the upcoming term. The student's name are provided to the student success academic manager and the student support, student success specialist for additional support. We have found that the frequent outreach to students and continuous follow-up have helped to ensure their success. Online students need continuous outreach to help them feel connected to the college. And now I would like to hand off to our next presenter, Brianna.
Thanks, Sasha. All right, so I'm going to focus on Brightspace strategies and tools. But before we get into that, I have a question for everyone as well. You can respond in the chat box. So are you currently using Brightspace tools? Have you currently or in the past? And if yes, which ones? My hope is that if you are currently using Brightspace tools, that this validates what you're already doing, but hopefully you'll have some new ideas that you can pull from my section that will hopefully help in engaging and supporting your students remotely. Liz, can you go to the next slide, please? I don't see anyone chatting, so I'm guessing that nobody's using tools. So this will be good. This will be all new information for everyone. So as students start the semester, they're very eager to get in and start to figure out all the ins and outs of their course. So one great way to do this is to have all the information ready in the welcome announcement. You know, it's the first thing they see when they log into the course, and they don't have to search for it. So in here right away, you can put in you're welcome, tell them a little bit about the course, some information on where to direct them to the course calendar, and as well to your contact information. So when they get to the course calendar for AC Online, we have a set template where the facilitators have an assessment table that shows the students everything that they will be required to do for the semester. So including quizzes, discussion post assignments, that kind of thing, with the set due date and the percentage for each one. And then below that is a more detailed outline of the weekly requirements, such as readings, videos, as well as anything that's due that week. And then finally, meet your facilitator page. So this is something that for AC Online is important because we don't, our facilitators, we don't see our students, and our first virtual meeting is usually around week 1 or 2. So on this page, the students can right away meet their facilitator, read their bio, read about their interests, as well as their office hours, response time for emails, and when they would get feedback from assignments. So, this may be a good option for you in case you have students who are not able to attend that first class, or even if they do, they have a place to go to double check office hours and other information. And you can also add a photo, which is a great way to put a face to a name. So these 3 elements are consistent across all AC Online courses, and students have shared that they find it very helpful as they get started in their course. Next slide, please. So next we move into weekly announcements, and the purpose of this is to keep students focused on the course learning requirements and the purpose behind the learning activities from week to week. So in the announcements, you can make connections between what the students are learning with real world issues and applications and current affairs. This could also offer opportunities for optional dialogues in the discussion forum that can happen in between classes, so it continues that engagement outside of the online class or the remote virtual class. You can also use your announcements area to provide targeted reminders for multi-phase projects, to provide whole class feedback for assignments that you've already graded. So again, you're giving them that continued information that they're requiring. And the more you're engaging in your class with your students this way through Brightspace and the announcements tool, the more likely they're to stay engaged as well. And next slide, please. So here we're moving into intelligent agents. There are many wonderful things that intelligent agents can help you with. So if you haven't heard of an intelligent agent yet, they basically scan Brightspace for criteria that you've defined in the setup page, such as students not logging in for 5 days, students not submitting assignments, that kind of thing. And you can choose to have an email set up with those that will be sent out, that when it meets the criteria, students will be informed that you're aware that they haven't been logging in and to reach back with you. You can also set this up with a specific date so that it runs consistently throughout the term. So many of our facilitators set this up at the beginning of term, and they use replace strings to personalize their emails. So here an example is one important replace string, if you want to try to remember any of them, is the fancy curly bracket initiating user first name, no spaces. The capitals are important at each at the beginning, and then it'll say hi Sarah or hi Bob to whoever that email goes to. And so it just gives that personal touch to the student when they're receiving that email from you. And this, just helps, again, let them feel that you're connecting with them. You can also perform practice runs or do manual runs to see if who in your class are meeting the criteria prior to having the agent run. It also helps too if you want to double check that everything's done correctly. You can do a practice run as well, or test it on yourself. So in the emails, you also want to offer support to the student and ask them to connect back with you so that you can have a conversation about, what's happening. They haven't logged in. Do they need extra supports? That kind of thing. So it's just another way to try to stay engaged, especially if you have a large class. The intelligent agents are helpful in doing that. So we have found that using the intelligent agents have increased student engagement with our AC Online students, and that they're responding back and reaching out to their facilitators when they receive these emails. So from these 3 slides, you can see that consistency and continued engagement through the use of the tools has supported our students. And so it's hopeful that they will do the same for you as well. Next slide, please. So we're moving on to awards and badges, and I'm just curious to know if anyone uses awards or badges in their courses now. Feel free to do a thumbs up or put it in the chat. This is one of the tools that I encourage our facilitators to use. Oh yeah, they do. That's great. So it's a great way to show, to support and showcase positive behavior and successes of your students. You can also attach an intelligent agent to it, so it is sent out immediately after the student has met the criteria. So, the student will get that instant gratification once they have completed either the checklist or a quiz or something that they've done. They're not waiting for you to see it and then send the badge. So that's something that's wonderful. Another idea is that they can earn a certain amount of badges, which then can go towards a bonus mark. So for some students who are struggling, this might be, that kind of extrinsic motivation to get them engaged in the classroom. So I'm happy to hear that lots of you a few of you are using that, but it does feel good. Yes, Gabrielle, when you do get them. It's a wonderful feeling. All right, next slide, please. So my final slide focuses on how AC Online facilitators stay connected with one another. Because many of us and you now are working remotely, it doesn't mean that you have to feel like you're working in silos. So for us, having the Facilitator Hub and Outlook groups has helped to build our community of practice, ensures that everyone feels connected. So this may be something you guys might be doing with teams or different programs. We're using Brightspace and Outlook, so it works well. We created this space for us to share information. We look at sharing best practices with student success in mind, asking questions, or even just checking in. Just knowing that you have people to connect with is sometimes helpful in and of itself. So the same can be said, for your students. You can use these tools to help them feel connected and supported during and beyond the pandemic. So I hope that my piece was helpful, and I'll pass it on to Liz.
Okay, so in this next session, I want to talk a bit about how to make the most of asynchronous and synchronous communication to effectively support and engage with students. So as with my other co-presenters, we first have a question for you. So what is your preferred method for communicating with students? So do you prefer email, phone calls, Zoom, in person, combination, something we haven't thought of? So let us know in the chat. I am curious what you guys prefer when you're communicating with students. Seems email and Zoom is a popular choice. Okay, so emails versus meetings. If you are used to supporting students on campus, you may be used to meeting with students in person throughout the day. Since moving remotely, your instinct may be to shift most of your communication to phone calls or Zoom meetings in an attempt to replicate the support you did provide on campus. So while at AC Online, we use email extensively for almost all of our communication with students. We find that most interaction can be handled effectively through email. Not only is this often more efficient for us, but it can also have some great advantage for the students. So at AC Online, we don't think that email should be viewed as an inferior option. They're often more organized, concise. They'll ensure that the situation is well documented. I'll talk a bit more about how to effectively use emails on the next slide, but for now I want to talk a bit about how to determine whether a situation is best handled through email or with a phone or Zoom meeting. So like I said, in the online department, email is our default, but having that mentality means we also need to recognize when a verbal meeting is needed. So if the emails you are receiving from a student are very unclear or you're having trouble getting the right information from them, then you may need to use a verbal meeting so that you can use clarifying and prompting questions to get the information you need. Similarly, if one or both parties have a lot of questions, you may want to choose a verbal meeting to avoid the endless back and forth that we know that can sometimes happen with emails. Other times, students might have a situation that is very sensitive or complex. In these instances, you may recognize that the student would benefit from added human connection and empathy associated with a phone call. That being said, in some cases, students actually have an easier time discussing sensitive situations in writing, so you'll need to use a bit of intuition for this one. Another reason you might have a verbal meeting is simply because the student requests it. That being said, some students will call or ask for meetings for every request by default, even when this isn't necessarily the best approach for the situation. It can be beneficial to encourage written communication skills, and sometimes the student doesn't realize how simple the answer is. So in AC Online, we often get phone messages asking simple questions, and the students will request that we call them back with the answer. Even so, we'll often respond back to these messages through email. We'll provide the answer and we'll let them know that we'd be happy to schedule a phone meeting if needed. And we find that most of the time, the information in our email is perfectly sufficient and a meeting isn't needed after all. So finally, I wanted to make sure to account for accessibility. In some cases, verbal meetings really are the best option for accommodating a student. So when we want to make sure that we're always listening to students when they advocate for their needs. Okay. So if we're going to be using email for most of our communication with students, how can we ensure that these are effective? First, we want to make sure that we always provide links and contact information. This may seem obvious, but just get into the habit of linking absolutely everything. Anytime you mention a service at the college, whether it's the library, CAL, counseling, registrar's office, anything, or say you're suggesting that the student contacts their coordinator, their academic advisor, student success specialist, make sure you're providing links or contact information. This is going to help ensure that your students actually make use of the information you provide. With email, you want to avoid sending huge blocks of text. This makes it very easy for information to get lost or overlooked. Make sure your points are very well organized, structured, and concise. And similarly, you want to make use of the formatting tools available to you. This means using things like tables, bullet points, color coding, highlighting, etc. Again, we want to avoid these large blocks of uniform text because the information all starts to blend together. Many of you probably already do this, but I'm guessing some of you don't. But especially if you're receiving more email than you're used to with the new remote environment, you're going to want to make sure that your email inbox is highly organized just for yourself by using things like folders and category tags. So file your emails in the appropriate folder after you've dealt with them. Possibly mark emails with different colors to help you visually keep track of what's in your inbox. Maybe you want to mark emails with a different color if you actually need to respond to them versus what there might just be an informational memo. Whatever system that will work for you, you just want to make sure you're keeping it extra organized. Another thing I wanted to mention is using mail merges. Some of you may be familiar with this tool, but some of you have maybe have never heard of it. But if you ever need to send group emails, especially personalized group emails, then mail merges can be an excellent tool. So while we don't have time to review the whole process in this session, essentially a mail merge is a tool that will allow you to send individualized emails to large groups of students. So I would encourage you to look into this tool if this may apply to you. Finally, you'll want to consider integrating video and video links into your emails for elements that would benefit from a more detailed explanation or demonstration. This can certainly bring your email support to the next level, and we're going to talk a bit more about using video on the next slide. So as I mentioned, video can be a very powerful tool, and specifically screen recorded videos are an excellent way to do asynchronous demonstrations. Screen recording with voiceover are a great way to explain visual tasks or processes with many steps. So think about things that you would usually explain to a student by showing them in person. The vast majority of these explanations would be just as effective in video format. It's worth mentioning that video is a very efficient tool because if you record it once, you have it forever. And if there's something in particular that you find yourself needing to explain to students over and over, consider whether it might be a good idea to just record a quick video to explain it. This way you'll have the video recorded on hand and you can simply send students the link whenever a student needs that same explanation. So in many ways, pre-recorded video is actually better and more accessible than a live demonstration. Video will allow them to rewatch, pause, speed up, slow down, use captions. This is especially useful for students who speak English as a second language, students with disabilities, really for anyone who's having trouble understanding something. Finally, there are many different software tools available for screen recordings, so you may want to look around to find out which one works best for you. But if you just want to try this out, then you can certainly also just use Zoom to screen record. Zoom will allow you to quickly screen record something. You can save it to the cloud and send out the link. So the last thing I want to talk about is making use of synchronous communication. In a digital environment, if something is live, the participants should immediately recognize why it's live. And I'll explain what I mean by that. This means that live sessions should always incorporate some sort of interaction, activities, discussions, etc. If all you're doing is delivering information rather than interacting with your audience, then consider whether it may be better as a pre-recorded video instead. The last thing you want is for participants to be listening to you live and wondering why they have to be there when they could just be watching on their own time. If you're going to be live, make use of your ability to interact and engage by spending more time on discussions and activities. Another thing you may want to ensure is that you're choosing synchronous activities as a way to encourage participant engagement, not because you're looking for more control over student engagement. Just because a student is present in a live session does not mean they're engaged. We all know that you can lead a horse to water, can't make it drink. I want to finish with an example of how we've applied this concept in AC Online. Each semester, we host orientation for hundreds of level 1 students. As you can imagine, we've always hosted these orientations fully online. In the past, we ran 8 to 10 hour-long live information sessions with PowerPoint slides and limited time for Q&A at the end. While these were relatively effective, they were very repetitive, not always engaging. The other limiting factor was student availability, as they were not always available to attend these live sessions. So for the past year or so, we have switched our approach and we've provided the bulk of our orientation information as a series of 8 screen recorded videos, which take about 30 minutes to watch all together. So students can watch on their own time and they can actually see a screen recording of what we're explaining as opposed to just looking at PowerPoint slides. These videos have all the benefits I described on the last slide. They're captioned, students can pause and rewatch, slow them down, speed them up, etc. In addition to these videos, we offer 5-hour-long live Q&A sessions. These sessions are devoted entirely to having discussions and answering student questions, and they're meant to supplement the pre-recorded videos. So with this approach, students end up with both higher quality information delivery as well as more time devoted to the live interaction. All right, so at this point, we want to just talk a little bit about how you can take everything we've been saying and sort of apply it post-pandemic. Obviously, this is something everyone's very interested in right now since we're all working remotely, but at AC Online, we feel really strongly that these are principles that would benefit students to apply beyond. So I'll turn it over to Sasha.
Students' expectations have changed with the pandemic. They know that they can be offered service virtually, and they will continue to request service virtually as it's provided them with flexibility to meet with college staff through Zoom and other applications.
And as Sasha mentioned, our students are now expecting online services, and with good reason. So providing the option for virtual support will improve accessibility for all students, not just online students. Students who live far from campus, have busy schedules, maybe they're part of a weekend delivery program, or maybe just people who are comfortable or more comfortable interacting online are just a few of the groups who will benefit from ongoing online supports.
Yeah, and I can speak to that as well. So because we've always supported students remotely, we've always had to think about the accessibility of our approach and our resources. So now because we support students remotely, we had to centralize and be innovative with our approach to fostering student success and engagement. So as a campus, we've been able to centralize our campaigns, processes, data collection, and are now better able to keep a pulse of our learners so that we can use this to develop best practice for ongoing supports and for future strategies. So more accessible resources beyond the reliance of an in-person interaction is beneficial for all learners, full stop. So the focus beyond the pandemic should be to ensure that college resources are not reliant on whether you are on campus or an online student. The assumption should never be that the accessibility and flexibility only benefits online and remote learners. It will continue to support our on-campus students once the pandemic is behind us. So in reference to the space as well and the use of physical resources, in AC Online, we've seen huge benefits in using Teams, things that already exist at the college level so that we're not, trekking across campus and spending all of that time going to different meetings because we know that space is an issue at the college and will continue to be an issue. So these are all considerations that we've considered post-pandemic and how we move forward.
Yeah, and just finally to share that in terms of using the LMS and Brightspace tools, that there's the learning and teaching services, they provide amazing workshops and tutorials to help you learn about these tools, as well as the LMS support, who are amazing if you need support with tools that aren't working or something that's gone wrong in your core shell. So you have those tools, those supports at your fingertips. Well, you can book an appointment and see them virtually, which is awesome, especially if you're from Pembroke campus or further away, then you don't have to trek into the Woodruff campus. So yeah, so these are great tools that you can start to incorporate and learn, and hopefully that you'll take some of this away with you today.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of our main presentation. We would like to turn it over to the audience, to you guys, to let us know if you do have any questions or comments, any challenges you've been having over the past 8 months, and perhaps we can give our insight as, again, probably one of the only departments, if not the only department, who had a pretty easy time with this transition. We honestly, all of us, if anything, and I will say, things have actually gotten a little easier for us because so many college supports are now available online. So unlike every other department, we've actually had an easier time doing our jobs since this has happened. And so for us, we're used to this. We know what we're doing with this, and we've been very calm through all of this. So anyone who's been having challenges with this shift, we'd be happy to kind of share our insights since we've been doing this for a little longer than most.
So Anna has a question.
Hi, I have about 20 questions at this point. Actually, I kept, asking things in my head as you guys were talking, because you touched on so many different interesting points, and it would have been really great to have that opportunity to ask after each presenter, because, smaller chunks of information. But anyway, I'm just going to limit it to 3 questions, if that's okay. My first one is, you talked about having access to statistics of whether the students have logged in or how much time they're spending on Brightspace. Is that available to your average professor, or is that just you guys that have special access to that information?
Well, I do know that as a professor in Brightspace, you are able to access that information just within the course. But I know that Power BI is something that is accessible and can be accessible if you request it. So Power BI is just a tool that I use to track our cyber truants and students who haven't logged in. And I do know that learning, like LTS, are working to come up with sort of templates to identify students at risk by running a report through Brightspace. So I would say that the answer is I don't see why you can't ask for that information, and it would be good to maybe discuss it with your with a coordinator or a chair to see if you can, because it is a really easy way to right away have access to that type of information so that you're able to better track your at-risk students.
So you're saying some of the basic information is available to me just as it is, right? Like, where would I look for that?
So, when I'm teaching a course, I will go into the class progress and look into, I'm able to see right away if students have logged in and when they've last logged in. And automatically that tells me whether or not they might need some outreach and support. And that is found in Brightspace in the class progress.
Okay, thanks. I'll look for that. My next question is, you mentioned all these wonderful tools like awards and badges and the intelligent agents, and how to embed little personalized strings in that. Where can I find more information on how to use these tools?
Yeah, there is Brightspace Essentials for faculty, which I believe all faculty are still connected to. I know that it's changing, and so I don't know if anyone has been removed yet. But that is something that I believe if you reach out to someone from the Learning and Teaching Services team, that they will have more information on the replace strings and different the badges and how to use those. But I do know that there's a course shell specific for on-campus faculty for how to set up your course and all the steps there. So you can check in your on your course shell homepage to see if it's there. If not, I believe that that's who might be able to help you a bit more for that.
Okay, thank you about that. And my last question is, so you kind of touched on that already, which is great. If there's a little bit more detail, I'd be curious. How did you notice student engagement and just student performance changing since the pandemic started? Has there been any change in terms of student engagement for you guys? Because as you mentioned, the tools are maybe more readily available through the college and everything, but I'm curious about the student demographic. Has that been notably affected for you guys who have been online from the start?
For one, and maybe Josh might continue after, but for us, it was more facilitators sharing that they're hearing from their students more, and that they're seeing that based on like the themes of their course that they've been teaching for numerous years or numerous terms, that they're seeing by using these tools that more students are reaching back. There are less students that are staying, that are not logging in anymore, that they're starting to engage and participate more. And so they felt that that was attributed to using the intelligent agents. So as we use these, we're learning more, but we think that especially from the support and outreach campaign that we did, that the numbers kind of matched with the use of the intelligent agents. Josh may have more to add on to that part, but that's just from facilitators sharing with us that they noticed a change.
Okay, so the tools became more readily available since the pandemic, and the students responded well to that, I think is what you're saying.
Well, the tools were always available. It was just, we were trying to encourage them. I put more of a push to use them to help increase student engagement. So intelligent agents and awards badges, like they've always been a part of the LMS. So it was just more getting the steps out for facilitators and supporting them on how to use them and to use them continuously through the term, and putting in those messages like reach back, connect back with us, and make, as opposed to just saying, you missed a quiz, and that's it. We want to know, we want you to reach back so that we can support. Do we need to refer to Josh or Liz, and then so just to unpack what's going on for them. So the tools have always been available. It's just we're trying to use them more and use them more effectively. And so since we have this term, we really did a bigger push on the intelligent agents, and in the summer as well, that we've noticed a bit more of a shift.
Nice, because it comes with a call to action, I think is what you're saying. So that's great. Thank you for the insight. That's it for my questions.
Yeah, I just to sort of, Brianna did a really good job in explaining that, but just to give you an example, so we had one of our highest enrollments this fall, but one of our lowest numbers of cyber truants that were tracked in our programming. So I think that speaks to the more increased use of the intelligent agents.
Great.
I have a question. This is Gabrielle. I think because I'm a co-host, I can't raise my hand. Have you noticed a difference in the type of feedback, that you're getting from students? So does it seem like your learners have noticed a difference in terms of their engagement with their full-time program from before the pandemic started to after? So you've always been reaching out virtually with them because that's the nature of their program, but are you getting any kind of feedback about like, do they like what you're continuing to doing? Is it harder? Is it easier for them? Or no, because they've always been online students and they're continuing to be online students?
I think overall, the students who were in online studies before the pandemic, like relatively unaffected in terms of our delivery. I think what's affected them more is like maybe personal situations, the fact that, people have a lot of stresses in their lives now because of just various personal situations they might have going on. Although I will say our demographic has changed a little bit, and that's something I think we've noticed, just because before the pandemic, the people who signed up for online were people who wanted to be online students. Now we have a lot more people who are there very begrudgingly. They're there because that's the only option, right? If you want to go to school, you have to be an online student in some capacity. And so, a lot of students are choosing AC Online because they figure, well, am I going to choose a program that's been kind of quickly adapted to remote delivery, or am I going to choose something that was already set up to be online? And so we are getting a few students who maybe would have traditionally chosen in-person delivery, and now they're kind of there because they have to be. So we've definitely had to deal with some kind of readiness issues, kind of managing expectations. We still get students, it'll be the first week of AC Online courses, saying, when are my Zoom classes? Why don't I have a timetable? Who's my professor? Well, you don't have a professor, you don't have a timetable, and you don't have Zoom classes. So sorry to break it to you. So we've definitely had to deal with some more of that since.
I can imagine, the manage expectations. That's a
Yeah.
good point about the demographics changing. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Ooh, I have another question. Uh, is it the same level of support for your Algonquin native courses, the courses that are originally Algonquin courses, and the ones that are partnered with Ontario Learn?
So we focus on supporting Algonquin students. So regardless of which course they're in, whether they're in a course at another college through Ontario Learn or a course through Algonquin, our focus is really on, if that student is needing support, we will support them. So even though Algonquin does host some students from other colleges, we would not be supporting those students, even if it's our course, if that makes sense. Hopefully this is not going over everyone's heads talking about Ontario Learn, but we do sort of work in partnership with the other colleges in Ontario. So we have some courses where we have students from all across the province. So typically if we have, it goes by the student essentially. So any Algonquin student, regardless of the course they're in, would get equal support. And if we do have a student referred to us who sort of belongs to another college, we would refer them to their host college for support.
Okay, so there's support to the students from your department, but you don't really have much control over the course that's being presented through Ontario Learn. Is that correct?
If it's another course offered through another college, then we can't even see the course. It might not even be on Brightspace. So obviously we let them know that they can refer students to us, and we do sometimes get facilitators from other colleges referring students to us for support. But that is one of the challenges that we deal with. There's kind of pros and cons to that approach. We're able to offer a much larger variety of courses because we use Ontario Learn, but obviously that means that sometimes we give up a little bit of control in terms of being even able to access the courses, never mind, we can't control them at all. So
I'm just interested because I'm taking a bunch of courses right now, and some are Algonquin and some are Ontario Learn, and I have to say Algonquin is so much better.
Well, we're glad to hear that.
The Ontario Learn courses, if as a professor I pay the reduced fee, but if I had to pay a regular student fee, I would be so disappointed. I would want my money back. Whereas Algonquin college courses are actually pretty amazing. So great job, you guys.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions from anybody or comments? I hope you enjoyed it or learned something from it. I guess we can end a bit earlier. If Gabrielle, you have anything to tie it up or wrap everything up, and then
that was awesome.
Earlier, get ready for music trivia.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you so much to the AC Online Student Success team. I learned a lot. I knew some of this already as a student success specialist and a professor, but it's nice to see what the experts have to say and how you frame it and how you work all the pieces together. So thank you so much to your team. And this is a reminder, at 12 o'clock, we have music trivia. You can find the link for that in the same area where you found the link for this one. So we hope to see you there. Thanks for joining Kaleidoscope, and you'll find the recording on the website and the learning portal in the next couple of days once we can get them all sorted out. Thank you for attending.